So today's video is one that you guys have asked me to do now for a while. We're going to be looking at the different light modifiers that you can use in a home studio. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today's video is a follow-up on a video that I made a little while ago that talked about how you can set up your home studio. And if you want to check out that video, I'll link it somewhere in here. But in that video, I didn't talk about light modifiers. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I want to point out the distinction that I'm talking about home photography studios, right? So I think that that's the reality for most of us. For the most part, I think we all work out of our home. And there are some limitations when you're working in a space that's not dedicated for this sort of thing. So my space is around about 5 meters, I think, by 4 meters, which I think is 15 feet by 12 feet. And also I've got the ceilings are not very high in here as well. So you are limited in some of the light modifiers that you can use, particularly with some of the really big ones. So I just wanted to point that out because everything that I'm going to show you today are things that I use in this space in here when I need to solve my lighting issues. Now, if you do have any questions about any of the stuff that I'm going to show you today, make sure that you leave them in the comments section below. And also what I'm going to do is that in the description of this video, I'm going to list out everything, and you're also going to find affiliate links in there as well. So if you want to purchase one or you would like to learn more about them, that's where you're going to find this information. Okay, so let's start off with the first one, which is the reflector. Not to be confused with the reflector bounce cards that we use. This has got the same name. Typically, these are shipped with a light when you buy them. And what they do is they tend to, they used to control the flow of light. If you look at it, it sort of looks like the nozzle on the back of a rocket, and it behaves in the same way with light. This is a typical strobe. You see the flash tube in there. And if I was to use this light as it is, then that light would just go everywhere. The front half of this light, of this strobe, it would just be, everything would be lit up. So what you can do is you just use the reflector, you put it in, and now it's a little bit more focused, okay? Now this is a fairly wide angle one. You can get ones that can focus the light a little bit more. So this one here, for example, if you compare them, although it's bigger than this little one here, it's a lot longer, okay? So the longer it is, the more that it can focus the light. So that's a couple of different types of reflectors. Now they do make some different ones in the same family, which I'll show you here. Let's have a look at this one first. This is a long throw. This one here really focuses the light in a very, very narrow pattern. And it means that you get more intensity in the light, which means I can place this light a little bit further back away from my subject, and I can really direct it, over a longer distance than if I was to use that one there. So you can see how reflective that is on the inside and how focused that is. Everything, basically, you just get a beam of light that comes out of this. So that is the long throw. Then you've also got this other type here. Again, this is all sort of the same family. This is called a snoot. This gets used a lot in product photography. And again, this mounts in there as well. And then what you get is this tiny little bit of light that comes out through the front there. Usually these come with a little O-ring that sits over the top, and this allows you to put either a grid or you can put some gels so that you can really style the light that comes out of that. So that's called a snoot. And the other thing that you can do with some of these reflectors is you can put a grid over the top of them. So I've got one here. In fact, I've got a couple of grids here. These are what grids look like, and they fit on the actual lights themselves, on the actual the reflectors. Okay, so if I turn this on here, let me turn this around so I don't blind you, and I will switch that on. Hopefully, I'm just looking at my monitor. Hopefully you can see that. That light is sort of going everywhere. Here you can see my shadow, so it's spreading out quite wide. If I take this reflector off, it goes even wider, okay? So you can see that I've got some light here as well on my hand. So this allows me, okay, just like the other ones that I showed you, it just focuses the light a little bit more. But if I need it focused even more than that, I can use a grid like this one here, okay? And all I got to do is just place that in front of it, and then the beam becomes way more centered and directed, okay, more precise. So this is a really good thing when you need a little pop of light in a particular spot. You can use just the reflectors themselves, or if you need something that's a little bit more precise, you can get a grid, and these come in different angles as well. So that one there is much, I'm not sure whether you can see that, but it's got larger holes, which means that the spread is a little bit wider than this one here, which is very, very tight. So those are the reflectors and the grids, and yeah, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so next we've got the umbrella. I think you guys are already familiar with how these work. You shoot your light into the inside of the umbrella, and then that light is then bounced back. In this case, because this is a bounce umbrella, that light is then bounced back onto your subject. It's a nice big light, it's soft, you got this beautiful catch light. So that is how the bounce umbrella works. There's also another type of umbrella called a shoot through umbrella, and it works in exactly the same way, except that the material is somewhat translucent. So let me mount this on here so I can show you. Okay, you should see the shadow of my hand behind there. Okay, so some light will go through this material. So when you fire off your strobe, the inside of the umbrella is going to illuminate. Some of the light's going to come back onto the subject, some it's going to go through and illuminate the environment. And sometimes you want that. Sometimes you want a little bit of light onto your subject and also to bring up the environment as well. So that's how you would use these umbrellas. If you're looking to get started in lighting, then these are the light modifiers that I would recommend that you get started with, because they're inexpensive and also they're very easy to transport. They weigh nothing, and they're very, very easy to set up. And also you can use these with speedlights, so you don't have to have a big strobe like this one. You could just have a normal speedlight, a normal on-camera flash, or a flash gun, and there are brackets to feed these umbrellas onto that, and it's used quite commonly. And when I have to go ultralight, I'll have a camera, a couple of speedlights, and a couple of umbrellas, and a couple of light stands, and that's pretty much me sorted. Now, these are Chrome umbrellas. You can get some cheaper version ones, so like from Amazon and eBay. Again, I'm going to put some stuff in the description of some of the ones that I bought that are aftermarket ones, are very cheap. But again, I wouldn't recommend that you go out and buy stuff just for the sake of buying. But for in this case, umbrellas, I think it's a really good way to get started with lighting with these particular light modifiers. Okay, so next we've got softboxes. This is the largest one that I use in here that attaches to a light. So this is the 1.2 Chrome Octabox something. I'll put it again. There'll be links in the description if you're after this particular model. So how these work is that you've got this diffusion material in the front. You've got another one in the back as well, and there's a little disc in front of the light that you can't see. But the idea is that all of these things start bouncing light inside the box everywhere. It's just going everywhere. And then by the time that it hits this last diffusion material, all of this is nicely illuminated. It's super soft. It's a beautiful, beautiful light. Now, I do have ones that are a little bit bigger than this. Like I've got a 1.5 and a 1.75. But they're too big and they just don't fit in here. I could set it up, but then I can't move it around and point it in the direction that I want to. Also, because this one is it's not as deep as some of the other ones, then you can bring it up a lot higher and then bring it down as well. Okay, but if it was too deep, the ceiling is just not high enough. The one thing that I will say that if you're looking to invest in a softbox, typically you get what you pay for. So some of the better brands are your Chrome Pro Photo, Broncolor, but I will say that the Chrome ones are specifically, they're very, very good. So you see a lot of people that are using Pro Photo lights, they use Chrome light modifiers just because they're so good. And also they're very quick to set up. You don't have to put the rods into the mechanism and set it up that way. They just sort of open up with like a spring mount system. So very, very good. So this is the biggest one that I've got. Again, I've got a smaller one, okay? So that's a slightly different softbox. And again, this has diffusion material that goes into the, you've got the inner and then the outer one and the disc as well. This one here is a little bit different. You can see how deep that is. I think it's actually deeper than this big one. But that's going to throw the light more, I guess, more of a narrow beam, and you can direct it at a more specific point. And there's also a grid that you can put on top of this as well, which again further allows you to just hone in on a particular thing that you want to illuminate as well. Softboxes, I do like the Octaboxes. I've got, and by Octa I mean that it's because it's 8-sided, right? It's an Octabox. And but as far as the catch lights, round shapes in the reflection in the eye of the light, they just look a lot nicer than as some of the other shapes. Typically you just want to see a round reflection in there. So these are the softboxes, and I do have other softboxes that I want to show you, so let's move on to those now. Okay, I wanted to show you this really quickly because I know that not all of you are shooting with strobes. Some of you are using speedlights, and I do as well, and this is something that I get a lot of use out of. This is a softbox that just pops up like that. You saw how quickly that is to set up, and then there is a bracket that you can attach a speedlight to. So what this does is this mounts onto the back of the softbox, and then once it's set up in like that, then that will mount onto a light stand, and then you've got this bracket in here where you can attach your speedlight, and then the head of the speedlight will go through here. So you've got all access to all the controls on the back of your speedlight, and then essentially what you have is this nice big softbox that you can use with a speedlight. Ultra mobile, very easy to set up, very quick to set up, and you can get some really nice photographs and some really nice light with this. But I wanted to point that out to you because I don't want you to think that you don't have any options if you're not shooting with the strobes. In fact, a lot of the light modifiers that I showed you, except for the really big ones, you're going to be able to use with speedlights as well, because they do make mounting brackets to adapt the like this one here, for example, where you have an adapter that, like this one here, that allows you to then mount the larger softboxes onto something like this, which then will also hold your speedlight. So don't think that you are out of options. There's loads of options for you if you are using a speedlight. Okay, so next we've got the strip box. It works exactly the same way as the other soft boxes that I just showed you. If you look inside, they've got the tonal diffusion material, and then on the outside as well. But then what this allows you to do is to project a very tall but narrow beam of light towards your subject. So this gets used a lot in those dramatic full length shots of sports people that you see, where they have a bit of a reflective light, a bit of a bright rim light around the side of the bodies. So they'll set up 2 of these on the side as well as the key light to really bring up those reflections that you see. But it's used for a lot of different things. This is the foundation of my headshot photography lighting system. So this is 90% of the work that I do is based around headshots, and I use several of these to get my lighting set up. If you're interested in learning more about that, just let me know and I'll make a video, but just put it down in the description. But it's a beautiful light. And the other reason I like these as well is because if you're working in a small space, if you've got the big round softbox that I showed you earlier, obviously you can only go as close to the walls as the outer edge of that softbox. Whereas with these ones, you can, if you can imagine this being a wall, you can bring this right up to the edge of the wall, okay, and you can still light someone if you're working in a particularly small space. Otherwise, if you've got that round softbox that I showed you earlier, the light stand would have to be around here. Okay, so this is a really good way to save on some space if you're working in a smaller environment. Okay, so next we have the beauty dish. This has been around for a long time, and primarily it gets used for fashion photography. Now, the one thing that you need to keep in mind with these ones is that your subject needs to have some pretty good skin. If they've got any sort of pimples or acne or wrinkles, then this is going to just show that up even more. So you need to get somebody that has really, really good skin. But you can get some really nice lighting effects out of these. Now, you would think that it would work the same way as a softbox. It doesn't quite give you the same type of light. What happens here is that the flash illuminates this. This is a silver metallic disc. That light then gets projected outwards. And the way that it works is that you tend to get much more of a hot spot, so brighter around the middle here, like a ring, and then it sort of fades out towards the edges as well. So what happens is that in the photograph itself, you do tend to end up with some specular highlights, which are like bright reflections, which again can look quite nice, but you really need to make sure that you've got the right subject before you use one of these. Now, you can soften these up even more by using something like a sock. This is called a sock, and this just goes over the top of it like that, and you can diffuse it in the same way that you can with a softbox. But by that stage, I would just recommend that you use a softbox. And also you can get grids. Okay, so like this one here that just sits on top of that, and then it allows you to just focus the light even more than this way. It doesn't spill as much. This is a sort of a regular size beauty dish, but you can get much bigger ones. This is a giant one that I've got, and I have used this a lot. This is even softer, and I love the light from this. But one of the things that I found, and I guess it was by accident really, that this particular beauty dish here is really good for product photography. I tend to, if I'm shooting a product on, say, this was my product over here, then I would have this on top like that, and you end up getting some really nice reflections and some really, really nice lighting. So again, you can experiment with everything here. All of the light modifiers that I'm showing you can be used for product photography. Everything can be used for portraits. You're just going to get more pleasing effects or less pleasing light, right? So it's completely subjective and it's all up to you. But the key here is to experiment with all of these things to see if you find or you get the result that is pleasing to you. Okay, so next we have the Scrim, which is essentially a framed, a wholesome translucent material that you can see here. This is a fairly big one. The way that I normally use this is you place this in front of any light that you're trying to soften. So in my case, I will, when I can, try to shoot with the light that comes out of that window. So just using natural light. It's okay today because it's an overcast day, but if it's a sunny day, then I'll just place this in front of the window, and that instantly just tones it down a little bit and just softens it up really, really nicely. You'll see that it's got a handle on the back for this particular model. This is made by Light, by the way. Again, there'll be a link in the description. But I've got a light back here, okay, with no reflector or anything, so that light's going to go everywhere. So if I wanted to soften that up, I could put that in front of it. I've turned that light on, and as you can see now, that's toned it down nicely, and it's very, very soft as well. So this is how you would use a Scrim. Now this is a really, really big one, okay? Let me put that to the side. So if you're shooting people or you're shooting really large products, then that could be really, really useful. But if you're using, if you're photographing something still a little bit small, then I've also made some smaller ones as well that you can make yourself, okay? I've got a video about this, link it somewhere in here, but this is essentially some Lee diffusion material, okay? You can buy this material in a roll, and I would recommend that if you are going to do that, that you buy a quality diffusion material, okay? So Lee is probably the best as far as I'm concerned. And one roll will cost you probably around about $100, but it will last you a lifetime, okay? Because you can keep reusing it. But you can also make your own diffusion panels as well. So again, if you're shooting your product on a table like this one here, for example, you can just come over the top of it like this. You can put your light there, and then essentially what you have is this really a large softbox, you know, but much more practical because you can move it around in a lot more. It's a lot more flexible in the positions that you could get than if you were using a softbox. So that's the Scrim. And just before we move on to the next one, something that I forgot to tell you about the Scrim is that you can also purchase these additional covers that go over the top of that as well. So you can get things like a silver reflective side or a white reflective side. That these are not they're not translucent, so they will bounce back the light as well. So it's just another way that you can use something like this. If all you have is natural light and you're trying to bounce that light, this can be really, really effective. Okay, so we're up to the last one. And up till now, you may have been familiar with the stuff that I've shown you, but this one here you may not know about. This is Cinefoil. It's also known as black wrap. And what it is this black aluminum foil. And now this stuff is a lot more, it's a lot thicker than the stuff you get in kitchens, okay? So here's a sample piece that I've torn off earlier. And the idea with this is that you can use it to build your own modifier essentially. So if you've got something like this where it's not tight enough, so this reflector here is still throwing off too much light down the sides, you can use this, wrap it around the light itself, hence the black wrap name. Okay, and then once you've got it in there, you can then shape this to allow all the amount of light that you want to allow out of the light. So so that's one way to use it. The other way is that you can cut holes through these as well, so you can get very precise. So even though you've got a big light, you can get a tiny little beam of light that comes off. And you can also get creative with your cutouts. If you want to, say, project something onto a backdrop, you can also do that as well. I know that we've cut slits into one of these before and then projected something that looked like Venetian blind sort of shade onto a backdrop. So that's another way that you can use it. The one thing you do have to be careful sometimes when this is on a light, it can get a little bit hot and also a little bit sharp. But apart from that, it's really useful stuff. And it's also very cost effective as well, because once you finish with a piece, you just roll it back into the roll and you can reuse it again and again. This roll here, I think I bought this about 7 years ago and I'm still going. I'm not even halfway through this. This is made by Roscoe. Again, there'll be a link. And I don't know how much it costs. I think it's about $60 for the roll. But like I said, this is going to last you years and years. And because it's foil, nothing's going to get through that. So if you need to black out windows, I've done that as well. I've just blacked out the windows and used half a roll to black out a window, and no light's going to get through. But again, you just roll it back into the box here, and then you get to use it over and over. So it's very, very, very cost effective. All right, so I think that's everything I wanted to show you. But if you think I've forgotten something or you have some questions, please leave them in the comment section below and I'll be happy to get back to you. And also, these videos do take a long time to do. So if you'd like to support me and the channel, make sure that you click the like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, consider doing so, because I make videos like this all the time to help you with your photography. So if you don't want to miss out on any of those, click the subscribe button and the notification bell, and that way you'll be notified when I upload a new video. Also, I've just launched the preset of the month, which I will be emailing a preset for free to anybody that subscribes to the newsletter. If you are interested in that, make sure that you check it out. It's available at ministryofphoto.com. There'll be links in the description. And if you sign up in there, you'll be in my mailing list, and you will be receiving a free preset on a monthly basis. Anyway, that's everything that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.